Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Podcast. As you can see, I'm standing side by side with my co-pilot for this week. Your name is Spencer Holbrook, correct?
Reporting for duty.
You work for LettermenRow.com, correct?
Correct.
An affiliate of On3.com, correct?
That's what they tell me.
Okay, well, we want to get that ID out of the way straight up as you climb into the cockpit of the Tim May Show. By the way, I started that flying thing before a couple of other shows around the country decided to start using that same euphemism. Just want to throw that in there. You know that for sure, right, Spencer? But nobody listening to this even cares about that. So I digress there. But ladies and gentlemen, Ohio State gets back to duty this week. Speaking of reporting to duty in a playing form, they had the week off last week in terms of playing a game. Of course, they practiced. But I think that glow from beating Notre Dame at Notre Dame with 1 second left continues for this football team. Do you agree with that, Spencer?
Yeah, it's reflected in the way that people are starting to talk about this team. And, you know, as we inch closer to this Penn State game, you know, you look at Penn State, they've got a bye week and then a UMass game before Ohio State, and that's it. Yep. Ohio State just has Maryland and Purdue doesn't look very good, but Maryland looks pretty good. So
I don't know about that Purdue thing. Purdue just whipsawed Illinois. I mean, don't figure that. I mean, when you think you got the Big Ten figured out this year, I'm talking about everybody below Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan, something happens.
Yeah, and so I think that as we get closer to this Ohio State-Penn State game, you're going to see people begin to talk about Ohio State just like they did before the Notre Dame game, where I think a lot of people are going to pick Penn State, and a lot of people are going to expect Ohio State to not be able to live up to the challenge. And so it's interesting because the post-Notre Dame glow was real, and folks were really giving Ohio State their flowers. I think that's going to cool off a little bit and come back down to earth before they face Penn State in the horseshoe in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and this one, you know, at your folly, ladies and gentlemen, skip over Maryland like Maryland doesn't even exist. Maryland's coming into Ohio Stadium 5-0. 5-0 for the first time in a long time.
2001.
Exactly. Number one, Michael Oxley, if you look at the progression of this team from when he first showed up there in 2019, I think it was?
Yep.
Till now, it has been a stepping stone. They've gotten better and better. This is a lethal team offensively. And as everybody knows, Ohio State led, 33-30 at one point in the fourth quarter at Maryland last year before finally pulling away with a field goal and then a late defensive touchdown by Steele Chambers. That was a hell of a football game. And it kind of was a forerunner of maybe what was coming defensively, the defensive fall-off for Ohio State the last three games of the year, which were Maryland, Michigan, and Georgia from the standpoint of giving up big plays. So Maryland's coming in having, I like using this will be my word of the day, whipsawed Indiana. Yeah. So we know that Maryland is probably the fourth best team in the Big Ten East. I think that's a safe bet. Maryland maybe battling with Rutgers for that because they've already beaten Michigan State and Indiana.
Yeah.
So this is a lethal Maryland team coming in with Talia Tungavaloa. So it's going to be an exciting game to watch, in my opinion. There's going to be the potential for a lot of offense in this game, which means the Ohio State defense is going to be put to the test. So we'll get to that later. But speaking of an offense getting put to the test, that was Kyle McCord and the Buckeyes 2 weeks ago at Notre Dame. They're trailing. They need a drive, and Kyle McCord gets it done. Yeah, there were some plays he would rather have back on that ridiculous 65-yard drive for the game-winning touchdown. Chip Trainum's 1 yard plunge against Notre Dame's patented 10-man defense. Patented, right? Because they used it 2 straight times at the goal line.
Yeah, 10 men in the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, wow. Touchdown Jesus does not play defense, ladies and gentlemen. We found that out. But I got to speak with Kyle McCord in a little one-on-one thing just about what that game does for the team and what it does for him. And he had some interesting things to say about, yes, it gives you a little boost of confidence, but this offense is far from reaching its potential, as he points out in this little clip.
Yeah. And I thought, I knew if that opportunity presented itself when we got the ball there at the end, we were going to score. Just having confidence in not only myself, but the guys around me. And, I was hoping that that's kind of what it came down to. And for that situation to present itself on that stage, I mean, I think you really can't draw it up any better than that. So to go out there and execute it, you know, I don't think anybody in the team was really surprised that we did it. I thought we were moving the ball pretty well. We just didn't put points up on the board, you know, as much as we should have.
Yeah.
So to go out there and kind of cap that drive off was pretty cool.
You know the baseball analogy, though, when you tell a pitcher, throw strikes?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that's literally what it kind of comes down to that.
Yeah.
And you got to read defense and everything, but,
Yeah.
but that's when you really learn about it yourself, whether you're wild high or whether you
Yeah.
deliver the pitch, right?
Yeah, no, I think, you know, at the end of the day, in the environment, you know, as crazy as it was, and, you know, they were a really good defense. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to executing, you know, what we do. And, you know, it's when we go back and watch the film, I mean, some of the plays we called there at the end were, you know, base day one install plays.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of reverting back to your fundamentals and sticking to your rules. And I think, you know, on that type of stage, it just proves that, you know, that's always going to get you home.
It's funny how it kind of comes back down to that, no matter what the stage
Yeah,
is, right?
exactly.
Hey, last thing, what do you? And you kind of touched on it right there, Kyle. Where do y'all go offensively from here? Is there not necessarily a swagger, but is there something to be said for getting it done? You know what I mean? From a confidence standpoint,
Yeah.
that it's there.
Man,
you know?
I mean, to go out and win a game like that in the fashion we did, obviously was great, and I think that confidence is huge. But going back and watching the film, it's like, man, we could have had so many more points,
Yeah.
which is, you know, exciting. You know, obviously, you know, it's a lot better to go back and watch that film being on the winning side of things. But knowing that we really haven't even scratched the surface yet with what this offense can do, it's exciting. You know, sometimes it's frustrating, you know, when we get all the way down to the 1 yard line and, you know, we don't score, or, you know, the second to last drive, getting all the way down there and not scoring. But, you know, I think, like I said, it's exciting knowing that we were able to put together a 2-minute drive like that and win a game like that and still know that we left some money out there on the field. So I'm excited for it.
That's the thing I like about Kyle McCord. Great guy to talk to, intelligent, knows he's pretty good, knows he can be a lot better, knows the offense can be a lot better. They left points on the board, as everybody knows. Actually, points not off the board. They left points on the field at Notre Dame, as you and I have talked about before, with some of those fourth down plays that didn't work, etc. He knows they can be better offensively, and so he's not resting on any type of laurels here with a 4-0 record 4 games into the season.
Yeah, and I think this is a good opponent to be able to show some improvement against. You talk about this as a Maryland team that lost its 2 best corners from a year ago, both of them now in the NFL. Lost a couple guys up front on that defense. So it's not your older brother's Maryland defense. Maryland's going to have a good offense, but defensively, I think they show some struggles. So Ohio State's got a chance to really take advantage of Maryland, especially in a building that, and I'll say it all week, Tim, Ryan Day averages 69.5 points a game at home against Mike Locksley. There's only been 2 matchups, but they were 73-14 and 66-17. Ryan Day does not let up on Mike Locksley teams, and I don't know why, but on the road, it's a struggle. At home, it's not a struggle. And so I think this one's going to be a little bit more of a struggle, but I would expect Ryan Day and the Buckeyes to bring their full arsenal into the Horseshoe on Saturday against the Terps.
We do know why, because it finally was revealed to us after the Ohio State at Notre Dame game when Ryan Day got very exercised after that game about people doubting the Buckeyes from their physical standpoint. Ryan Day does have a fire in his belly.
Yeah.
He just shows it against Mike Locksley in Maryland when they come here.
Yeah.
I'm just still a segue in there. Bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, if you want tickets to Ohio State, Maryland, it is homecoming for Ohio State. It's a noon start. GameTime.co and the GameTime app are the place to go for those tickets. They have tickets for every kind of event you can think of, from concerts, whatever you want to call it, tractor pulls, whatever's out there. But the main reason you watch this show, and the main reason you'd be interested as an Ohio State fan, is, can I get into an Ohio State game if I haven't bought tickets yet? Yes, GameTime.co, the GameTime app, is your salvation in that regard. And they also have great guarantees, don't they, Spencer? Bottom line is, if you find a ticket on the GameTime.co or GameTime app, if you find a ticket there and make your purchase, and then you find another ticket on another site in the same aisle, the same section, the GameTime app, the GameTime.co, will refund 110% of the difference between that ticket and the one you found on another app. It's a great place to go. Also, with if you use, what is the code word?
Um,
Buckeyes.
Buckeyes. It's Buckeyes.
If you use the code word Buckeyes, you'll get how much off on your first purchase? Do you remember? Is it $20?
I believe it's a $20 bill, Tim. Who's on the $20 bill?
Yeah, that would be what's his face from Nashville.
Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Jackson. I knew his hometown, but I couldn't think of the name. What do you think about that? But anyway, Andrew Jackson, you'll get an Andrew Jackson back on your first purchase with on the Game Time app or gametime.co. So it has turned into the place to go in the aftermarket ticket area. Gametime.co, Game Time app, use it. Because we do, don't we?
Every single time, Tim. Every time I want to get a ticket, go to the Game Time app. They've got you covered. You used it, as I've been telling everybody, you used it to go see Lil Baby in concert last month, and I know you had a great time doing that.
Forgot to bring diapers. And the bottom line is my wife and daughter used it to go to an Ohio State game a couple of weeks ago. So it is definitely the place to go for that aftermarket ticket when you've gone, oh my goodness, I want to go see Ohio State play today. Boom, get on the Game Time app, and there you are. And speaking of that, this is homecoming, as I mentioned a while ago. You brought up Maryland and maybe how they're rebuilding defensively. Offensively, though, with Talia Tungavaloa, this is a nice team, isn't it?
Yeah, they've got. So this isn't, again, your older brother's Maryland, also in a sense where Jacob Copeland is gone from this offense. Raheem Jarrett is gone from this offense. Dumas, the other wide receiver from last year, Demas, who was really good. All three of those guys are gone. And so you've got new weapons breaking in. Maryland.
Ty Felton, man. Yeah. Ty Felton had 3 touchdown catches in the first half.
Yeah, I think
last week against Indiana, for example.
I think Caden Prather, is he on this roster? Maybe. I think he's a pretty good wide receiver. Like, they've got weapons.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the
kid at running back is pretty decent.
Only a sophomore, Roman Hemby, that's a name to know as the rest of this Big Ten after this year is going to lose some of its star power at running back. Roman Hemby is going to be there next year. So, like, Ohio State, as good as they've been offensively, they slowed down Sam Hartman. They slowed down Western Kentucky and Austin Reed.
Yes.
Now it's another chance to show that you can slow down the spread. And you're getting into a league where you're going to face a pro style against Penn State. You're going to face a souped up pro style against Michigan. Before you can get to either of those games, though, you got to face a spread, a true spread with Maryland. And I think that this is a good challenge for Ohio State.
Yeah, Nebraska faced that souped up pro style against Michigan the other day. A lot of people thought that could possibly be a good game or possibly
it wasn't
upset. It wasn't from the get-go. It is what it is at this point, right? But you know what? One of the things that came to the fore again when they really needed it for Ohio State 2 weeks ago at Notre Dame was number 8, tight end Cade Stover. Cade Stover had 11 catches in that game, tied for the game high with Emeka Egbuka. Unbelievable game really for Cade Stover, and could have been even better if that one little loop pass had just dropped in there instead of being, I'm calling it broken up instead of a dropped interception. What, you agree?
It goes in the stat book as one.
Pass breakup instead of an interception. And Cal McCord, of course, thanks his lucky stars for that one. But the bottom line is Cade Stover once again stepped up when Ohio State needed him to. And I caught up with a former Ohio State tight end, Jake Ballard. Happened to be playing golf with him on this past Saturday, in a scramble. By the way, the guy can hit the ball 360 yards, no effort. But that's a story for another day, so I don't want to digress on that one.
He could have probably helped the U.S. this weekend.
Yeah, he helped us in that scramble. I know that, man. He drove a couple of greens. He looked pretty stout. But the bottom line is, I was talking to him about playing tight end and what he sees of Cade Stover, especially, and his potential as a professional. As you well know, Jake Ballard was on the New York Giants when they won a Super Bowl. He knows about playing in the NFL and playing at that level. He thinks Cade Stover has that. But hey, I'll let him tell you here in this little excerpt with Jake Ballard.
So Jake, what does this football team get from a win like that? We'll get into Cade Stover in a minute, but what does this team get from that kind of victory?
I think it gives them a tremendous amount of just confidence, knowing that, believing what the coaches are teaching them and coaching them, and to do, your job to the fullest. And if you, all perform and do your assignments, good things can happen. And I think it also helps them from a standpoint of knowing they can play with the best teams in college football.
Yeah, do you remember a win like that from your career at Ohio State? I mean, obviously your last game was crazy
Yeah,
against Oregon,
right.
but and that could be one of them. But a team can propel from something like this. I remember talking with Joey Bosa, when they beat Penn State in 2014 over there.
Yep.
That shove sack,
Yep.
and stuff. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter how it got done. It got done, and they moved from there to another realm.
Right. In my career, I honestly don't remember any games that were knocked down, drag out fight like that. I mean, we were in a lot of tough games and we won a lot of games. But probably the Rose Bowl. But our go-ahead touchdown, we were up by 10 points, so it's not the same. A walk-off touchdown to win the game in a hostile environment, where they just stole the thunder out of the Notre Dame fans.
Hey, I'm trying to remember, how many catches do you have in your career at Ohio State as a tight end?
Not a lot. I think if I remember correctly, probably about 33 catches for my career. My senior year, I think I only had 11. So, averaging a little under one a game.
Cade Stover had 11 at Notre Dame. What does that do for him?
Oh, well, Cade's been coming on ever since they moved him over to the tight end. He just brings a sense of toughness and efficiency, and obviously you can see how his teammates feel about him being voted captain. And really, it seems like any time we need a big play, if you throw it number 8's way, he's going to come through. And not just catching the ball, yards after the catch, he does really well. So it's fun to watch him play. I think he's an NFL tight end who could have a sneaky long career as long as he stays healthy.
What does Tim May always say about the tight end, especially in college football?
Most important position on the field.
No, that's not what he says at all. He says nobody ever covers the tight end in a consistent basis.
100%.
Why doesn't the tight end have 10 catches every game?
Well, there's only so many balls to go around now with this running clock too. It's tough.
I love my buddy Jake Ballard. We've become pretty good buddies since his playing days, and you can see why. He's just a straight and level talker. Matter of fact, he was kind of bummed out the other day because deer season was starting and he was playing golf, and he'd rather be out stalking deer or sitting in a stand and letting the deer stalk him, I think is the way I put it. But real quick before we go, Spencer Holbrook, thanks for joining me again on the Tim May Show. Always have to say show because I want to say podcast every time. You ever have those kind of words you kind of hang up?
It's available on all podcast platforms, dude.
Yes,
That's the joy of it. You can get it anywhere.
How about show platforms? Is it available on all?
Yeah.
Would it be available on would it be a Las Vegas show? What do you think?
No. I don't know if they give you that.
We don't have dancing. We don't have. Now we'll get into what we don't have. I was about to go down a dark path there. Give me one team. Don't give me 15. Don't give me 3. Don't give me 2. Give me one team nationally right now that has caught your eye, and you think after the first weekend in December is going to be invited to the college football playoff that has never been in the college football 14 playoff. Give me one team.
Well, Florida State's already been.
I know
there.
I caught you by surprise there.
Well, there's only one team, and I know who you want it to be.
I'm asking you.
When you say college football playoff for the first time, I mean, everyone else has been there that I think has a chance to go there. There's only really one.
Well, Oregon State hadn't been there.
And that's probably Texas, I guess. But, I'm not really that impressed with Texas.
Wow.
Quinn Ewers, since the Alabama game, has not looked like a Heisman Trophy candidate. He's looked good, not great. Texas was good against Kansas's backup quarterback and held him to 250 yards. But
that was Texas' defense. Texas' offense scored points.
Yeah, I agree.
Texas' offense scored points against who was it the week before? I mean, Baylor.
With a backup quarterback at Baylor, and they played
weird. I'm talking about Texas' offense scored points.
Yeah,
I'm not sure where you're going.
This is where you got me, Tim.
I think you're talking more about Texas' defense when you're whipping Quinn Ewers. They're going to be found out this week one way or the other. Either them or Oklahoma is going to be found out this week.
Yeah, and by the beginning of December, I would imagine Texas is going to be in the college football playoff conversation because there's kind of a dearth of options in the SEC right now. There's potential.
Another one bit the dust over the weekend.
There's potential that we can talk about that later. LSU looks terrible. There's a possibility that the Pac-12 beats itself up. There's a possibility even, that these folks behind us in the Big Ten all beat themselves up. And so if you look at a team for the first time making the college football playoff, I think the only answer right now are the folks down in Austin. I don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to make it through unscathed, which always puts you in jeopardy of missing a 4-team playoff with one loss. But they're probably the option right now to make that field.
If not Oklahoma, then who's going to beat Texas in the Big 12?
I think it could be any week. I mean, I understand that this is supposed to be a different Texas, but like once you get there, then we'll talk, because I've heard this as a different Texas a lot of different years and a lot of different times. And it always happens where they go on the road in a game that they shouldn't lose. They lay an egg in an 11 a.m. Central Time spot at home, and you just scratch your head and say, man, that team is so much more talented than the team that they just lost to. I mean, this is the same Texas team that was in a dogfight 10-10 and late in the fourth quarter with Wyoming. So, like, it can happen any week. I don't know who it's going to be, but if you told me at the end of the year, yeah, Texas would have made the playoff if they didn't slip up in that one game and look pretty bad in it, I would believe you more than if you told me, hey, they went 12-0, took care of business, won the Big 12, and went to the college football playoff. That's just the way I've been. Tim, it's a 10-year sample size at this time, so you got to flip the narrative now. And
well, you got a lot on your brain there about Texas, man. I was hoping you were just going to say like Texas and give me one sentence, but instead you've got a lot of pent up emotion. And I want to, in truth in advertising here, I want to make it clear. I mean, yeah. I was born and raised in Alabama. We moved to Texas when I was 11 years old. I moved to Ohio when I was 22. I never, ever liked Texas. Texas was known as the elitist team up there, sort of like what a lot of people look at when they think of Michigan, that they consider themselves elite. The Texas X's are some of the most annoying fans out there, et cetera. I'm not a Texas guy by any stretch. If anything, I was a Texas A&M guy because a bunch of my friends went to Texas A&M.
Didn't you? But you picked Texas to make the playoff this year, right?
Oh, I think Texas is going to make the playoff this year. I think Texas could run the table. Texas might end up being the number one seed in the playoff this year, based on what I saw from Georgia over the weekend, for example. So that has nothing to do. I'm just trying to be objective, not subjective in this thing. You're being very subjective on.
I just want to see
dislike for Texas and Steve Sarkisian, whether they can continue this run. I know. I'm just trying to.
Oh yeah, I don't dislike Texas at all. I don't have an issue with Texas.
Sounded like he disliked Texas, ladies and gentlemen. Like he thinks Texas once again is overrated. I think we're going to find out as this season goes along. But I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but I might as well. It's the Tim May Show, right?
Yeah, I guess now I'm labeled Spencer Holbrook Texas hater. Come at me.
It sure sounded like it, didn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Send your cards or letters or emails. You'll find the email address at the bottom of the show here. But bottom line is, I want to ask you this: give me one other team that's going to make the college football playoff that you feel for certain right now.
Georgia. I don't think Georgia is one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the country right now. Either. I don't see a way that they lose a game though. I look at Kentucky.
Don't go through their whole schedule.
No, I'm not going to. Okay. But I'm going to give you 3 challengers for Georgia.
Okay.
None of them can beat Georgia.
Yeah.
Kentucky, who's not going to beat Georgia this Saturday in Athens.
Yeah.
I think after a bad performance at Auburn, I don't think Georgia's losing that game. I look at Tennessee, who just doesn't have it. I don't think Tennessee's got it to beat Georgia. I don't think they have the horses. And then the SEC championship game is either going to be LSU, who got their dogs walked on Saturday, Alabama, who has real issues on offense, and Georgia's...
You're not going to name 50 teams now,
No,
right?
I'm naming 3. I'm giving you 3. Kentucky, Tennessee, and Alabama. I don't think any of those 3 teams, who are the biggest challengers left on the schedule, are going to beat Georgia. Therefore, I think Georgia's going to go 13-0, make the college football playoff.
I think Kentucky's got a hell of a shot at them this year. A hell of a shot at them this week, because I think Kentucky's playing defense better than it ever has under Stoops, and I think they've got a shot at them. Let's put it that way. I just keep remembering back to Georgia. Georgia, for all intents and purposes, should have been beaten at Missouri last year.
Yeah.
We'll see what Missouri brings to them. Missouri had them on the ropes.
Missouri's good.
Let them go. Yeah, exactly. But this game this year should be in Athens. I do believe. I haven't checked the schedule.
Yep.
Missouri, a big member of the SEC East. But that's the way things are, ladies and gentlemen, modern college football. Just when you think you've got geographically in your head what things should look like, they don't look like that. And it's going to be even more obtuse next year. But Thanks for that insight. Yeah, I think Georgia has the easiest path. You know why? Because they might be in the third toughest or maybe fourth toughest conference in major college football this year. What do you think?
You might be onto something, Tim. I wrote on LettermenRow.com on Sunday afternoon after watching. You know, we're in the press box every Saturday. This Saturday we weren't. So I had the quad box going from YouTube TV, not a sponsor.
The quad box.
Was watching 4 games at once, and I started to think to myself, by the end of that 3:30 slate, I looked at the TV and I said, man, the SEC stinks. This league is not.
Yes.
It's not a good league this year. And yeah, I think, like I said, with the SEC, there's a dearth of options for the college football playoff in that conference, and I think Georgia is really the only team that I would be confident in saying, like, yep, that team. Because like A&M lost badly to Miami. Texas beat Alabama at Alabama. Like, you tell me that those 2 teams who are going to face off this week, both get another loss by the end of the season. LSU's already got 2 losses. It's Georgia or bust almost for this SEC in the college football playoff, which is just weird to say on the 2nd of October, but that's where we are, Tim.
Wouldn't it be ironic if in the final year of the 4-team college football playoff, if 2 teams from the Pac-12 made the playoff and no teams from the SEC made the playoff? Wouldn't that be? That wouldn't even be ironic. That would be earth tilting, wouldn't it?
It would be lovely. I think
it'd be lovely.
I would love
it could
that.
happen.
Yeah, I mean, next week on the 14th, Washington and Oregon play, and if one of those, whoever wins that game, if the other one turns around and beats the other one in the Pac-12 championship game, you're looking at 2 one-loss teams with just losses to each other.
Yeah.
Put them both in. Because I tell you what, Tim, I know USC's not making the college football playoff. I am 100% confident in saying that right now.
You ever see a tree that's leaning? You ever see a tree that's leaning and it keeps leaning but hadn't fallen yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
It falls eventually.
That's USC because, you know, I'm not sure you could count on scoring. Maybe they can, scoring 45 points a game for the rest of the season, because defensively that team is in a world of hurt. But we'll get into that later.
It's ugly.
You know, it may even happen this weekend. Who knows?
Yeah,
but ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining me on the Tim May Show, and Spencer Holbrook being my co-pilot once again. You were able-bodied co-pilot there. You put us into a little bit of a loop and then a little bit of a split S there when you started talking about Texas. You saw how I responded, right? Yeah, exactly. But until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you then.